For years, she lived under violence and silence. Her voice was buried, her light dimmed, her spirit chained. The world saw the glamour, the stage lights, the shimmering smile. But behind closed doors, she carried a secret storm. A storm of fear, of wounds hidden in shadows, of a life that seemed impossible to escape. And yet, there was something inside her that refused to die. A spark. A whisper. A voice that would not be silenced forever. This is the story of Tina Turner. The woman who walked through fire. Who faced the weight of fear and chose not to bow to it. Who transformed pain into power. And silence into a song that set the world ablaze. Her journey is not only about fame. It is about survival. It is about the moment when a soul says, "No more." For decades, she was caged by fear. And yet, from that cage, she rose. Not only as a singer. Not only as a star. But as a force of life itself. She reminds us that freedom does not come when the world opens its doors. But when we dare to open our own. And so I ask you. How many times have you believed there was no way out? How many times have you thought your voice was too small, too weak, too broken? What if that very voice, the one you doubt, the one you silence, was the key to your liberation? She was not yet Tina Turner. She was simply Anna Mae Bullock, born in the rural town of Nutbush, Tennessee. A place of dust roads and endless fields, where music rose from church choirs and the hum of labor. But her childhood was not carried on the wings of harmony, it was marked by absence, poverty, and wounds that left invisible scars. Her father was strict, harsh, distant. Her mother, overwhelmed by her own struggles, left the family when Anna Mae was still a child. Abandonment became her first lesson. The feeling of being left behind, of not being chosen, carved itself into her heart. For a little girl, love is the ground where the spirit first learns to stand. And when that ground disappears, every step feels uncertain. She was shuffled between relatives, raised by others, never fully rooted, never fully secure. The sense of rejection became a silent companion, always whispering, "You are not enough. You are not wanted." And yet, there was another whisper, buried deeper. When Anna Mae sang, the pain dissolved. Her voice carried strength even she did not understand. In church, she let her soul stretch beyond her body, beyond the walls, reaching for something greater. It was as if music was the one place where the wound of abandonment could not follow her. This is the paradox of life. The same pain that wounds us can become the well from which our strength flows. The loneliness she carried forced her to search inward, to rely on a power that no one could take away. The rejection she endured planted the seed of resilience, a resilience that would one day fuel her rise from the ashes. We often imagine childhood pain as weakness. But in truth, it can forge an armor, not of coldness, but of endurance. Anna Mae's scars would later become her fire. The echoes of "Not Wanted" would transform into an anthem of "I Will Not Be Broken." It is a mystery of the human spirit, how something so fragile can carry so much weight, and yet not collapse. She did not yet know it, but every tear, every lonely night, every unanswered question was preparing her for the storms to come. And so, I ask you, can it be that the pain we carry too early, the wounds we wish had never marked us, are, in truth, the very roots of our greatest strength? What if the places where you once felt most rejected, the cracks in your story, the emptiness left behind, are the same places where your future power will rise? Fate revealed itself on an ordinary night, in an ordinary club. Anna Mae Bullock was just a teenager, restless, carrying the weight of rejection but also the fire of music burning inside her. That night, she walked into a place where sound ruled, a club where Ike Turner and his kings of rhythm were playing. The rhythm was raw, electric, alive. And something inside her answered. She picked up the microphone almost by chance, as if destiny itself pushed her forward. When her voice erupted, it was not the timid cry of a forgotten child. It was thunder. It was fire. Everyone in the room turned. Ike Turner turned. He had found the missing piece, and she had found a stage that could carry her voice beyond the shadows of her past. From that moment, Anna Mae became Tina. Together, Ike and Tina Turner created a storm of sound. On stage, their energy was uncontainable, wild, sensual, unstoppable. The world applauded. Crowds screamed her name. The little girl from Nutbush had become a queen of rhythm. But behind the applause, another truth unfolded. The home that should have been her refuge became her cage. The man who had opened the door to her dreams locked her in chains of fear. The same hands that guided her on stage turned into instruments of violence in private. She lived two lives. Under the spotlight, explosive, radiant, untouchable. At home, silenced, bruised, diminished. The applause of thousands could not drown the whispers of fear at night. The voice that electrified the world was forced to quiet when the curtains closed. This was the contradiction of her life. The stage offered freedom, but her home was a prison. Violence does not only break bones. It breaks confidence. It convinces the soul that silence is safer than truth. And Tina, despite her power, was caught in that silence for years. The world saw the glamour, but they could not see the cost. Every song was born not just of rhythm, but of survival. Every performance was a rebellion against the darkness waiting off stage. This is the cruel paradox. The man who gave her a name also tried to erase her identity. The one who claimed to love her used love as a chain. And so we must ask ourselves. How many of us have mistaken control for affection? How many times have we confused love with prison, and loyalty with submission? The truth is harsh, but it is also liberating. Real love does not silence, it does not diminish, it does not chain. Tina's story forces us to look at the price we pay when we allow fear to decide the boundaries of our voice. She was not yet free. But within her silence, a deeper force was growing. The force that would one day shatter the cage and ignite the world with her true light. The years stretched on like an endless night. Behind the glamour, behind the roaring applause, Tina lived in a prison without walls. Abuse was not only an event, it was a rhythm, a cycle, a shadow that returned again and again. Every outburst, every bruise, every word meant to belittle her was a reminder, she was caged. And yet, she still stood before thousands, electrifying audiences as if nothing could touch her. The stage became a mask, a place where she could borrow freedom for a few hours, even as fear waited backstage. Imagine an eagle, wings once built for flight, now cut and bound. It looks upward, sees the sky it was born to claim, and yet cannot rise. That was Tina's life, an eagle with eyes fixed on the horizon, but chains pulling her back to earth. But no cage lasts forever. Something within her began to resist. She realized that silence was no longer safety, it was surrender. And she could not surrender. One night, after years of humiliation and pain, she made a choice. With nothing but a handful of coins and the clothes on her back, she walked out. She left the stage, the man, the chains, and stepped into the unknown. It was not freedom yet. It was fear. But it was also the first breath of courage. She knew the risk. She knew he would rage. She knew the world might not believe her. But there comes a moment when the weight of chains is heavier than the fear of breaking them. And in that moment, Tina chose to shatter them. This was her silent scream, not shouted in words, but declared in action. It was the scream of a woman who had carried too much, for too long. It was the scream of a soul demanding to live. We often think courage is the absence of fear. But the truth is different. Courage is born not when fear disappears, but when we decide not to obey it anymore. Fear still whispered to her, "You cannot survive alone. You will fail without him. You will never be free." But she walked on anyway. Her silent scream became the beginning of her rebirth. The eagle, though wounded, spread its wings once more. And even if the flight was uncertain, even if the air was unsteady, it was flight. So I ask you, where in your life do you still obey fear? Where have you mistaken silence for safety, when in truth it is only surrender? Remember this. The fear does not disappear. But courage is born the moment we decide not to obey it. She had walked away with nothing. No fortune. No comfort. Not even the security of a home. The industry whispered that she was finished, a discarded name in the archives of music. But while her pockets were empty, her soul was finally free. Freedom, however, is not a guarantee of success. It is a blank page, terrifying and uncertain. Tina Turner stood before that page, trembling, but ready to write. She began again from the bottom, singing in small clubs, doing whatever it took to survive. At times, humiliation knocked on her door, reminding her how far she had fallen. But she refused to let defeat have the last word. Every note she sang was an act of defiance, a promise to herself that her story was not over. And in the quietest moments, when despair came close, she discovered a hidden well of strength. A strength not born from the world, but from within. She encountered the teachings of Buddhism. At first, just words. Then, a practice. Then, a revelation. Through the chanting of mantras, she felt her spirit shift. The sound, repeated like a heartbeat, was not only a prayer but a liberation. It was the discovery that the battlefield of life is not only outside us. It is inside, where fear and faith wrestle for the throne. The stage would come again, but this time, it would not be her cage. It would be her crown. Her career as a solo artist began to rise, piece by piece, against every prediction, against every doubt. The same industry that had written her off was forced to watch as she rose higher than ever before. Her voice, weathered by pain, carried new power. Not just entertainment, but testimony. Audiences felt not only her rhythm, but her survival. They were not just hearing a singer, they were witnessing a woman reborn. This was her true revolution. Not the lights, not the applause, not even the fame. But the decision, each morning, to rise again. To sing not from the chains of fear, but from the freedom of spirit. We often look for revolutions outside, political, cultural, social. But what if the greatest revolution is inward? What if transformation begins not in the world we see, but in the world we choose to cultivate within ourselves? And so I ask you, what if the true revolution is not out there, but inside you? In the way you rise each morning. In the way you refuse to obey fear. In the way you turn pain into the seed of your rebirth. The world thought she was finished. The industry had closed its doors, critics had dismissed her, and whispers of failure trailed behind her name. But Tina Turner was not done. She was only beginning. When she stepped onto the stage as a solo artist, she carried with her not just songs, but scars, scars that had been transformed into power. Her voice was raw, electric, uncontainable. It was no longer just music, it was survival turned into sound. With Private Dancer in 1984, the world watched in awe as Tina erupted back into the spotlight. Songs like What's Love Got to Do With It didn't just top the charts, they became anthems of liberation. Her energy was incendiary. Her presence was magnetic. She was no longer a background name, no longer tethered to someone else's shadow. She was her own force, her own fire. The same woman who had once fled with nothing but 36 cents now commanded stadiums of thousands. She was not a victim. She was not a survivor. She was a queen. But her crown was not made of gold or jewels. It was made of resilience, of scars transfigured into strength, of a voice that refused silence. Her concerts became more than entertainment, they were rituals of release, for her and for the crowds who sang with her. Each performance was a declaration, fear will not have the last word. And that is the deeper truth of her triumph. Her victory was not only musical, not only professional. It was spiritual. Because the greatest crown is not the one the world places on your head. It is the one you place upon your own soul when you renounce fear. Tina Turner stood as living proof that courage is not born from safety, but from choosing to rise in the midst of danger. She was radiant not because her life was free from fear, but because she refused to obey it. And so, let this be remembered. She did not win because fear vanished. She won because she danced despite it. The stages burned with her fire. The crowds roared with her defiance. The woman who had once been caged now reigned, not through domination, but through freedom. Her crown was invisible, but undeniable. It was the crown of a soul that had reclaimed itself. So I ask you, what crowns have you denied yourself, because fear convinced you they were not yours to wear? What stage inside your life still waits for you to step forward, trembling, and claim it? Remember Tina's truth. She did not win because she had no fear. She won because she danced despite it. Tina Turner's life reminds us of a truth too often forgotten. We are not defined by the pain we suffer, but by the courage with which we rise and reinvent ourselves after it. She carried abandonment, violence, humiliation. But she refused to let those shadows be her final story. Instead, she chose the fire of reinvention. She chose to lift her voice, to step into the light, to crown herself with freedom. Her songs were not just melodies. They were victories. Each lyric, each performance, each beat of her energy was proof that the soul can triumph over silence. That even in the aftermath of fear, there is a dance waiting to be born. And so, her story is not just hers, it is ours. Because each of us carries chains, some visible, some hidden. Chains of fear. Chains of doubt. Chains of a past we think we cannot escape. But listen closely, you are not your chains. You are the strength rising behind them. You are the whisper inside that says, not yet defeated. Not yet finished. So I ask you, what part of your life is still imprisoned by fear? What dream lies waiting, silenced, because you have not dared to step toward it? And when, if not now, will you choose to dance despite it? The invitation is not to deny fear. It is to meet it, face to face, and say, you will not decide who I am. Let Tina's legacy be more than memory. Let it be a mirror. A reminder that the same courage that set her free waits also within you. Step into the stage of your own life. Claim the crown only you can wear. And when fear whispers, let your answer be simple. To rise, to sing, to dance. Because freedom is not out there. It begins here. It begins now.